today we have this beautiful 2010 Audi R8 with us. We're going to be adding the Alpine ILX 702D. We've got the fascia made, we've got all the wiring and steering wheel controls and all the good stuff that we need in here. This is the first dog for us, so we'll be learning with you guys and giving you all the tips and tricks that you need. And I'm keen for it, so let's get into it. Alright guys, typical Audi fashion to get the factory radio out. Audi keys, we've got plenty here. Got these two here which are on a string, so what we want to do is pop two in the bottom. Okay, you'll feel them when they click in, kind of like that. 1 and 2. And we've got 2 at the top. Okay, so in total there's 4, and then we should be able to pretty much pop the whole thing out, like so. And take your time with it, be very careful, obviously. It's going to pull straight back. What I like to do when I'm pulling back is look for plugs. Okay, so there's no plugs right here, which is good. Go back, back, back. Okay, a little bit of resistance there, and then voila, there she is. Go ahead and pop out all these plugs. Alright, so for anyone that's interested, factory camera plug right here, antenna there, so AM FM antenna. The blue's your GPS antenna, and that's the quad lock connector there that runs everything. We've got some power, we've got CAN, we've got AUX wiring, and some other stuff in there. Cool. So with that out, we can set the radio away, remove your keys first, and then continue on to the next part. Alright, so up here we've got all the in and outputs for the Alpine radio, so that comes in your head unit kit, whether you buy Alpine, whatever, it doesn't matter. So we've got a GPS antenna, microphone, USB, camera input, all that stuff, which we're going to do later. And what we have right here is the retention harness. So basically this is going to plug into the quad lock connector, plug into the factory antennas. We've got a steering wheel control interface here. It gives us all the reverse outputs, speaker outputs that we need here, and or speaker inputs I should say. And I've already soldered and tapped on our Alpine plug. Now what I did was, this actually came with a plug-in piece for 2 ISO harnesses, but I assumed it would be really tight for space, but it's actually not. There's heaps of room back there, so if you've got a plug and play one, just plug it in. If you are tight for space, usually you'll solder, and that way a big chunk of the plug is taken out of the equation. Alright, so let's put this down and start plugging things in. All of our amplifier inputs, so on your aftermarket unit, you'll have the outputs right here. So you're gonna go, it's all labeled, so it's pretty easy. Front output, go to front left, front right. Look at that, pretty easy. Red is right and black is left. Generally it's white. There we go. So we can tape that up. That's one section done. So depending on who your supplier is for the steering wheel control module and amp retention and all that stuff, there's going to be dip switches, which are right here, and settings. So we've got the Audi R8. We've gone ahead and set all the dip switches up. We've set the patch lead for Alpine because it's an Alpine unit. So just unplug the module, okay, because it needs to be reset. Plug it back in. And what I'm going to do is, just with this stuff set, I'm going to quickly plug in the head unit and see how it works. Make sure everything's in working order before we start going too fast. That is a good sign. Alright guys, radio's on, power is on. I'm not going to lie, we spent a bit of time mucking around with this. Those are the dip switches that we had to use. And as you see, it's got power now, and every time you touch a steering wheel control, you need ignition on. Every time you touch a steering wheel control, it flashes, and that means steering wheel controls are working. So you can see they're working, right? All of the dip switches that came on the list did not work. I just went through and found one that was working, so the module actually turned on, because with most of them the module doesn't even turn on. And then I went through and just mucked around with the dip switches and thankfully figured it out. So that's that. Sound works, as you heard coming through the car, so that's good. Power's on, steering wheel controls, those are a lot of the main things. So now we can go ahead, we're going to do GPS antenna, microphone, DAB antenna, USB. We'll probably get all that done and then show you guys which way we went about it. And then we'll look at mounting the fascia. and the job. Oh yeah, and we got to do the camera, the factory camera, retain it, and then the job's pretty much done. All right, guys. So we've got module in, steering wheel controls are working, power's on, sound is working. You can hear the from the FM. And now what we've just done is I've tapped on the RCA cable to the RCA video input of this head unit because it doesn't have an RCA in. That video is in the top right hand corner if you want to know how to do that. And I've just run it over to the camera module which is behind me and tapped it onto the plug that we need to tap onto. And if you go into reverse, boom, factory camera working. We'll clean up that lens because the car's pretty dirty and it'll look a lot cleaner. But the factory camera works, so that's the main thing. So I'm going to get this neatened up, run over there, nip all that up, then we'll look at how to do the fascia and finish up the job. Alright, camera is now completed. We checked it, it's all working. You guys saw it before. GPS is done, camera's done, USB is done, power is done, GPS antenna, DAB antenna, sound, steering wheel controls, everything's pretty much ready to go. So now what we're going to do is hide those out of the way for a minute, and we're going to look at how we're going to mount the new brackets on the radio. And just so you know, we've brought the USB down to here, and what we're going to do is double side it on the top of that panel right there. So essentially how it's going to look when it's finished is like that. So it's going to be neat, out of the way. Couldn't think of anywhere else really that we wanted it. I think that's neat, that's where I would want it if it was my car. So yeah, that's that. Alright, so these brackets look like they use the original points of contact. So we're going to mount the radio into the bracket, and then it's just going to slide in like so, and it's going to use the factory points to lock it into place. You can see just like that, so it's going to go boom. Okay, and that'll stop it from coming out. So that's one section of it. So we've got one on each side. We also have this. Now they line up with that, so I'm going to assume that that goes there, and I know what that is for. Hang on 2 seconds. Beautiful looking fascia, okay? But what it has on it to hold it into place are these El Magnetos. So what I'm thinking is that's going to mount there, and then it's going to clip into place, which is pretty cool. I actually quite like that idea. It's easy to remove. It's not a big pain in the backside. So yeah, mounting looks pretty straightforward. So I'll go ahead and start mounting it and playing with it, getting it right, and then we'll look at what it looks like when she's done. Guys, there it is. That is the fascia done. Now, as you can see, I'm just turning the fan off. It sits and looks really, really nice, and it just uses those 4 magnets to hold in place. It's really tight, it's not going anywhere. We've lined the unit up perfectly. The bracket that I showed you earlier that mounted the radio, totally wrong. We had to grind the edges down a lot. It still fit perfectly, but I mean, we took off 90% of what was there. Just left 2 little notches on the left and right side, or 2 on each side, 4 in total, and it held in perfectly. It's still clipped in well, the unit's not going anywhere, but that's something that we had to do, and that's something, you know, that you should be aware of. Other than that, fascia sits on nice, everything works. We've got to set up the unit and clean the whole thing first, but just so you can see, steering wheel controls are working, factory reverse camera works, parking sensors are still working. We're going to have CarPlay. We'll mount this USB when we're finished, clean the whole job, maybe get a look at it when it's done, and that is pretty much it. So we're probably going to end the video here. I want to say thank you so much for watching. If you want to reach out to us, it's www.shoptfb.com. Fill out the contact form, get in touch with us. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We'll catch you in the next one. So these brackets look like they utilize the original points of closing. Oh, what the fuck? The original
points of contact.
Yeah. All right, ready? Guys, today we are going to be working on the, what year is this?